You know, I do a lot of foundational Black American content. And, you know, we get a lot of love, but we also get a lot of pushback. Today I want to do this video and I want to talk to my brother Poetic Flaco, who I love his content. You know, I like Poetic Flaco. I like the young brother, African brother. And FD Signifier. FD Signifier is of Jamaican descent. I actually, you know, he has over 1 million subscribers. I like his channel. And for me, FBA, like I said, FBA is a lineage. It's not, everybody don't agree. And in foundational Black American lineage, you got people part of the Black church, people part of the Nation of Islam, Hebrew Israelites, right? You got Pan-Africans. You got, it's over 45 million in the lineage. Everybody don't agree or do the same things. What I don't like is some of the rogue things that you might see online. A lot of you guys just put that and just say, hey, that's just FBA. No, those are just people that are part of the lineage. The same way y'all got rogue people that talk bad about us. The same way y'all got rogue people that say very disparaging and nasty things about us. My issue that I have with some of you brothers is, and like I said, I'll be 51 this year. I'm not into disrespecting people or just going crazy and calling people tethers. I like to have intellectual conversations and break things down, right? Where maybe we can have peace, right? And my whole thing is this, right? I never see you brothers make videos where you actually outing or calling out maybe the Caribbeans or Africans that say disparaging things about our culture or about our people. When you guys get upset, y'all speak on us, but you never speak on why we're saying what we're saying. That's the issue that I have. And maybe we can have a dialogue and a conversation about it, right? But FD Signifier, he can't stand Tariq Nasheed, and he came and he said this.
But no, I don't have any Jamaican, Nigerian, Caribbean, or African direct descent.
Said earlier, here's the official FBA website. I told y'all he built this, and at the bottom it says Foundational Black Americans. Let's throw that joint in the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office site, and boom. That's your boy, right? Just in case you needed more proof, the earliest recorded mention of the site's URL happened on October 7th of 2020, when he was trying to sell y'all FBA mini flags. The earliest mention of the term is hard to pinpoint, but he was using it on another one of his sites in 2019. Here's proof of him creating the term in the first place, claiming he adapted it from Dr. Claude Anderson's Native Black Americans term. The FBA movement started as Tangibles 2020 in the lead up to the 2020 election.
Man, we don't need to be on no AD.
So that's the first thing, because people be like, FBA is a lineage, and it's like, if you're telling me y'all made up a new term, I get you, but it was made by King Grifter. Let's start that out first. This video is now top 10 reasons I don't FBA ADOS in no particular order. Number one is everything FBA is as a record label, a crew, a clique, and a crew. Everything that's ever been done by Tariq Nasheed is awful, just because he's involved with it. I don't care if Tariq Nasheed saved 2 babies from a burning building. Like, I'm happy those babies are alive, but it would have been better if he sacrificed himself in the process. Okay, Tariq Nasheed is King Grifter. I've talked about him a long time ago. I'm gonna have to come back to it now, but he's just been like an awful dude for years at this point. And he was connected to another group, ADOS, which started out as something that a lot of people seemed cool with, but over time eventually showed his ass. And we'll talk about that later. So he created this FBA concept, and FBA is basically a group of online weirdos. You can call it a lineage if you want, that's fine. Understand, other people that are connected to your lineage are a group of online weirdos.
So my brother FD Signifier, you said that Foundational Black Americans was a group of online weirdos. My issue with that is 50 million of us, right? Everybody ain't online calling people tethers or doing certain things. My whole thing is, for you with your big platform, why don't you request a conversation maybe with a brother or a sister that is FBA that can come and explain to you what it is that we're doing? Because the one thing that I never see, right, from a lot of you, from the other side, where you said in the video that you have 2 parents that are of Jamaican descent, but you were born here. So you see yourself as one of us. Okay, fair enough, right? The arguments that we bring to the table that we make, you're not making any videos speaking on that while we're saying that. You just relegating us to just some ragtag group. And I just think that that's disrespectful. I don't have to call you out your name. I don't even dislike you. I would like to have a conversation. We're 2 grown men. Let's talk about it, right? But he wasn't done.
They're like black 4chaners, black Reddit energy. a bunch of white nationalists and blackface. You say they ain't just online, I take your word for it. I've never encountered these niggas in the wild. Now, they may flow into different versions of hotepery, which has always been here, but the people that like brand themselves with ADOS are just a lot of online weirdos. So,
ADOS, man, we need to be.
Was 2020.
Let's listen to that one more time.
2020 election.
Man, we don't need to be on no ADOS, man. We need to be Pan-African. That's what Pan-Africanism is. Us fight for everybody else to come over here and get some of the resources that we've helped accumulate for them, and then they turn around and say, okay, thank you, Akata, and I'm about to go work with these white people.
Back then, Tariq was in
There's so much to unpack there. Tragedy. Let's first stillman where some of this comes from and talk about that term Akata. A term I literally, my entire life, I just told y'all I grew up around Nigerians. I have never heard that term my entire life, in real life. I've never heard that term my entire life. I am 43 years old. I grew up around Nigerians. I hung with Africans, dated the baddest Sierra Leonean chick at my school, at Clark. Never got hate from Africans in any form or fashion.
And again, my brother, you said that you never got hate from Africans in any form or fashion. But that's you. How can you speak for all the other people whose experience they may have had with Africans or Jamaicans, right? I'm from Philadelphia, the East Coast Corridor, right? I know a lot of beautiful African people. I know a lot of beautiful Caribbean people. But I also know a lot of Caribbean people that called me Yankee or told their children not to be around us. Or the term that we were lazy. And you know that's true. My mother is families of Caribbean descent. I know what they said about us, right? My father's FBA. So I know exactly what they've said about us, right? My whole thing is the issue I have with some of you brothers is you're not honest in your assessment. You have every right to feel the way you want to feel about Tariq. Fair enough. Like I said, we adults. We can have a grown conversation, right? But it's never, you guys never say, okay, you know what, fair enough, right? But you know, I was born here. I love black Americans. And it is true. A lot of things that they say, man, they do say that. So I understand where that comes from. But maybe this may be too far uncalled for, right?
I'm not saying it don't exist. What I'm saying is FBA people will make you think that Akata is some type of like deeply rooted anti-black slur that they grew up singing Negro spirituals about. ADOS and FBA people think Nigerians are the black Targaryens. Or what were the actual black Targaryens? They were the Valerians? That's who ADOS actually think Nigerians are. Real talk, they talk about Nigerians like they're supervillains. It's hilarious. They talk about being called Akata as if African booty scratch wasn't a comeback. So Juicy made a very good video about this now 4 years ago. Right? And Juicy's I love Juicy's analysis. Juicy's very balanced, but very principled. I'm gonna just put this in the description or whatever. If you want to talk about that there is reason to critique some black immigrants, especially in the media space, on their anti-blackness, you can do that. That is a real thing. There is a propensity for behavior to come from black immigrant populations. Like Juicy so perfectly looks the part of like the 92% and talks that game that the black liberals be getting so close to her, and as soon as Juicy lets that little communist flag fly just a little, but they be pearl clutching when Juicy gives them some materialist analysis and calls out the. Oh, I love Juicy for that. Oh, there's critiques to make about black immigrant populations and specifically their relationship with the media and how they're amplified in media. There's definitely a conversation about that. There's a conversation to have about anti-blackness from those populations because there is a propensity for anti-blackness. Because first off, anti-blackness, as I said in another video, everybody's got anti-blackness in them. Every single last one of us. Now you're either actively negotiating and fighting against it internally, you're actively resisting anti-black tendencies, or you just actively are in the, or you act like you don't, but you do. That's just the reality of the situation. Nobody is immune to conditioning of the media and how we're meant to look and think of blackness, regardless if that blackness is American born or internationally born. And so what happens, I talked about this with Foreign Man years ago as well, is that when you are a black, but you're not from America, it's easy to just assume that black Americans are just out our lines. My parents are Jamaican. They grew me and my siblings up with the whole Black Americans are ghetto. They don't have a culture like us. Thankfully, me and most Americanized siblings have been able to change their mind. Yeah, because that's what's taught outside of America. America exports an image of Black Americans to be this deranged, uncivilized, barbaric thing to incentivize the idea that we are deserving of our treatment and condition here. They have to present us like this to the world. The world will be looking at what they're doing to us like, how is this something y'all are doing? Why is this supposed to be cool? People fall in line with that. And it takes a generation to be here to realize, oh, wait, no. Foreign Man's talked about this before. He was like, yo, when I came from the Bahamas to Iowa, of all places, I had a particular belief and disposition toward Black Americans that something was wrong with y'all. And after spending a little bit of time in this space and how I was regarded, it started to make sense. But not everybody has that. The crux of how this Diaspora Wars 80 started is a response to what is ultimately a white supremacist tactic to pit foreign-born Black people against domestically born Black Americans. That's where ADOS comes from.
Now, CFD, I feel like you broke down and explained the situation, but then you got disingenuous at the end, where you said that this is basically a W supremacist thing to divide us. When I'm telling you, what we're saying is what was already divided. See, if we called you African booty scratcher, we kids with undeveloped brains, right? But your grown parents, grown-ups, adults, is using white supremacist talking points against Black people, telling you, don't stay away from us, we're lazy, we're violent, we're all this that you admitted to, that your own parents told you. These were grown-ups. They were using W supremacist talking points. What makes you think that we didn't know that? So now we're calling that out. You know one thing I say, FBR signifier? My parents and grandparents never told me to stay away from you. My grandparents never told me not to play with you. Never. Okay, yeah, we bust as children, but the adults never told us to stay away from you, ever. So don't use the white supremacists. No, they came over here with a white supremacist ideology. Say that. This is where I'm saying, my brother, you being disingenuous. Because if we can start off that honesty, we can have a great conversation. I can't speak for everybody else. I don't think that you're a tether per se. But I think that we should have a conversation, just brother to brother, right? Because like you said, you was born here, your parents told you something that you don't believe, right? Fair enough. But let's stay on the part where your parents, because it wasn't just relegated to your parents. It was a whole lot of them that thought like that.
And they use internet troll tendencies to kind of drive that up. ADOS is very manosphere adjacent. What do the groupers call themselves? Operators? They have like people, their whole job is to just constantly churn memes and content. All Black people will be as Black as they possibly can when it's beneficial to them. And then as soon as they have an opportunity to distance themselves from that, they do. It's just easier for foreign-born Black people. That is something that happens with some Black immigrants. But here's the key thing I want you to think about, and I'm about to play this to get to it. How is that even possible? And that's the thing that will always frustrate me about even the most good-natured, civilized, sensible ADOS figures, is that the question around their entire ethos never gets back to why is our condition in this country the way it is for there to be an incentive to side against us with our oppressors? And why is that never a part of the praxis and conversation with these types of individuals?
So the whole thing, FD, you're criticizing ADOS and FBA, but you actually just proved our point as to why we're delineating and separating. We never said that we don't ride with Africans or Caribbean. That's some rogue people online. We said the tethers, the ones that you're speaking about. We're separating from them. What you're doing is being disingenuous and trying to make it seem like we just separating from all Africans and all. We never said that. You got people online that may say that. I don't say that. I'm talking about the ones that come here and undermine us, disrespect us, say that we're lazy, talk about our reparations claims, and all those different things. That's what we calling out. But Poetic Flaco, he got in on this And remember, Poetic Flaco is from Africa. He got in and he said this.
The problem with this is FD is undermining the experiences of a large group of people, right? If a large group is telling you, hey, we experienced this at the hands of these group of people, then it will be silly to say, no, you didn't, because my experiences were positive. If their experiences were not positive, then, then that's fair, right? They have a right to express, hey, I was called Akata, hey, I was called this. They have a right to express it. But what I do think is often done is they will want their experience to be acknowledged, right? FBA will say, hey, this happened to me. These immigrants be undermining us. They're pompous. They treat us like this. And that's fair, right? That's the lived experience. But then an immigrant will say, hey, I was called, like African booty scratcher. Hey, I was called this growing up. Hey, I was called this growing up. Hey, y'all was really mean to me for being African. Hey, y'all did this. And then the FBA will say, man, stop it, bro. Man, bro, stop lying, bro. Man, what you mean, bro? What? So when you got teased as a kid, that's it? Nah, man, all right, bro. And it's like, damn, okay, so if we're able to acknowledge your lived experience, you're incapable of acknowledging their lived experience? I've always said, Africans who are anti-black exist. Jamaicans who are anti-black exist. Immigrants who are anti-black exist. But there are also, right, Black Americans who were born and raised here who are also anti-black. But somehow, I think FBA is holding all immigrants for the actions and the sins of a specific group, of a very small group of people who are anti-black. And it's like, hold on, if we held all native-born Black Americans to the crimes and sins of a select few who are anti-black, that would be unfair. So why do it to us? Things went from a conversation to a war. It went from, can we have the discourse? Can we talk about these things? Because these things are actual meaningful conversation.
But see, Poetic Flaco, again, I'll tell you respectfully, I think you're being disingenuous, because this is the thing. I always say, yeah, we called you African booty scratcher. We called you the same thing we called ourselves, right? But one thing that you leaving out is our parents never told us not to mess with y'all. Our parents never told us that you was lazy. Our parents never told us to stay away from you. Our parents never told us that you was violent. What I'm trying to say is the psychology and the thought process of who we was, that was ingrained in you from your parents. And that was a thought process amongst a vast group of those elders that was coming into this country. That's a conversation that's not being had, right? We have a history of opening up our arms. I can tell you, you never was running for your life from us like that. You never saw us marching in the street trying to get y'all kicked out the country. No, we don't have a history of doing that. We're voicing our opinion today, right? And like I said, there's people that may call you a tether. I'm not going to call you a tether. I'd rather have a discussion with you, right? It's better to have a discussion. I just have a different approach to things, right? It's better to have a discussion. I like you. I like your channel. Right? I just disagree with what you're saying right now. And it's worth the conversation, but let's proceed.
And then it transitioned to a war. Now, bro, neither side is really trying to have a talk, because both sides really have a great argument for why, man, I ain't trying to talk to these folks, man. Like, for example, bro, I used to really like this YouTuber, bro. I used to really, really, really like this YouTuber, man. But to this day, I'll never speak to him again. I'll never have anything positive to say about him again. Right, like, but we have nothing to discuss. Like, this YouTuber is a despicable, nasty human being. You feel me? And I came to this conclusion because this YouTuber did a video where he was discussing and telling his audience that they need to boycott all African businesses. And I'm like, hold on, bro. Hold on, bro. Now, if you have a bad experience at a few African businesses or at a few African braiding shops, I think it was boycott all African braiding shops. If you have a bad experience at one African business, do you even think is logical, is morally intact to say one African business did something bad, let's boycott all African businesses? Let's what? Like, make sure they go out of business? Let's tear down and attack the livelihoods of mom and pop shops who's just trying to operate? Like, that's okay to y'all? Like, when I seen it, I was so confused. I'm like, why would anybody push for this? Why would anybody ask for their audience or push for a blanket boycott of all African businesses because somebody had a bad experience at one African business. I've never seen, hey, this white business owner disrespected black people, let's boycott all white businesses. That doesn't happen. So when I seen content creators and YouTubers and people who I actually like, one dude I actually like, who was pushing to boycott all African businesses, I'm like, hold on, this is just, now this is hate. Now, this right here is the purest form of xenophobia and racism. And that's when I said, okay, it's gone too far, bro. We can have our disagreements. We could talk about, the best way for us to move forward, man. But to logically come to a conclusion that you are morally inact when an African business did something to one person, and now you're saying all African businesses needs to be out of business. Boycott them all. Mom and pop shops who have no idea what the internet is. They're just running their business in real life, who've been in a community for years. Boycott them, bankrupt them, take away their income. It just doesn't make sense. And I just felt like, to me, that was the last straw for me where I couldn't get along with that, bro. I just couldn't, like, that just, that made me feel really nasty inside.
See, Poetic, this is what I call disingenuous. Because the same way you feel about that brother that made that video and it made you upset, right? I've done videos on Africans, I've done videos and I'm showing Africans where they've called out their community for their anti-black racism towards black Americans. It's all over my channel, right? But I see you criticizing this brother, but you as an African, you don't have one video calling out Africans for the way that they disrespect us. That's the critique that I have for you, Poetic. And I'm challenging you to do that. See, because my whole thing is, if we want to get to fix the problem, we need to talk about it. We need to talk about, because what I'm saying is black Americans open up their arms to you, Poetic. They showed you love, right? But we know that there's a lot of Africans that disrespect us. You're voicing your opinion towards a black American and what he done. Okay, I can't tell you you're wrong on how you feel. But I don't see you with no content calling out the Africans that you know disrespect us, right? So that way you can get an understanding for why we're saying, because you're saying you understand why we say it, well, show it. That's all we're saying. Because for us, we feel like it's been one-sided. This so-called Pan-Africanism that nobody practices but us have been just one-sided. And we're the only problem, but it's nobody else. I never see the Caribbeans or Jamaicans for the most part that complain about us. They never ever make videos showing their people when they talk bad about us. Now you got some that's 10 toes down and go and say, hey, y'all be talking bad about them black Americans. This is why they talking the way they talk. And then they'll talk and I can show the proof. My whole thing is, we called you African booty scratching. There may be some black Americans that say bad things about Caribbean and African people, right? But there's also Africans that come here that use white supremacist talking points against us. That's a fact. But y'all don't talk about that. Y'all don't show that. I think that's where some of the problems is. And it's worth having a conversation. It's worth having conversations, right? If y'all made it this far in the video, hit that like button, subscribe to Street Media TV, leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think, man. I'm a 51-year-old black man. I got a different way of doing things. I'm not going to be online howling and screaming and cussing people out. I don't do all that. Let's have a conversation. That's it. Peace.